Welcome back to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. My name is Wayne Kimmel, managing partner of 76 Capital and host of this podcast. My guest today is Carlos Silva, and I am so excited to have Carlos back on the show. Carlos is the president of the Anthem Sports and Entertainment and the strategic advisor here at 76 Capital. He also serves as the president of TNA Wrestling. Check that hat out. Invicta Fighting Championships, the Fight Network, and Game Plus. Carlos, welcome back to our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show.
Great to see you, Wayne, as always. Always great to be here.
So excited to have you back. I mean, we got to start this whole thing off with your last weekend and what was going on.
Yeah, we were down in Nashville, and everyone knows like Nashville. I mean, I know it's not now. I know it's been years, but it's just Nashville's on fire, and it's Valentine's weekend. The place was packed. Bars, restaurants, everyone playing music and having a great time. We were there for 2 nights at this great theater called The Pinnacle that's pretty new. And we just had a couple of people show up, which was amazing. We got a note from Jelly Roll, said how much he loves TNA Wrestling, wanted to come by the show. So he popped by. And then it turns out Trey Miguel, who is one of our wrestlers and had a big match for the international title, is good friends with Teddy Swims, and Teddy Swims shows up and sat ringside with me and then jumped in the ring at the end of Trey's match and gave him a big hug when he won the belt, which was awesome. We also had Westside Gunn in the front row, bringing all the culture that he always brings, and he loves wrestling more than anyone in the world loves wrestling, and we do a lot of work with him with his promotion, Fourth Rope. And so yeah, it was like a big entertainment, festival, and everyone was just having fun, and it was a great night.
It's one of the things that it fascinates me, just how well you have, I guess, overall adapted to the world of wrestling. It's sports, but it's part of sports. It's different kind of part of sports. Talk about kind of the difference, that you've had from running, like World Team Tennis and Professional Fighting League, and now running TNA Wrestling.
Yeah, it's interesting because it is a little different for sure. I mean, sport, we've been in sport, together for 25, 30 years now. We've been at so many different places and so many connections, big events, the Olympics that are obviously going on right now, and I did so much with the Olympics back in the day with NBC, some fighting leagues. The thing that's interesting about the wrestling business is foundationally it's the same. And when I say that, I mean, you need a venue, you need to sell tickets, you need to make your money, you need good TV distribution, and you need a good partner, and you need great sponsors. Like, those are all the things that anyone that's listening, that's running any kind of a league or promotion or a sports property or an entertainment property, whether it's Broadway or whether it's a baseball game, you have to do all of those things. I think the difference that I've found and that I feel is I've never really been in a live event scenario where the crowd is as much a part of the event as what's happening on the field, if you will. In our case, in the ring, but in the field of play, if you will. And the crowd is such a big part of it. I mean, sure, like great performers always play off of the crowd. And, even if you're a sprinter or a tennis player or a football player, certainly those moments, the crowd does make a difference. But I just think it's even bigger in wrestling. I mean, the crowd is actually part of the show, even more. And I got to tell you, the fan base is unbelievable. They're standing the entire night. They're part of it. They love it. They love the entrances. They cheer the endings. They boo the bad guys. They boo us. They cheer us. It's really great. And then it continues in such a massive way on social every single day. It lives every day until you get to that next show. So it's been great now, a little over a year doing this. It's started to build, and it's a different feeling, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you anticipated my next question. I really wanted to talk about how it does continue after the event, right? The fans and their involvement before the event, after the event. I want to talk about your new, TV deal that you just did, which is again kind of from the old world, but at the same time to now see just how much the fans can get involved from a social perspective and the interaction that occurs even when between events.
Yeah, as you mentioned it, with our new deal with AMC, we're on, every Thursday night here in the United States on AMC from 9 to 11. We're on in Canada on Sportsnet, another great partner. Again, every week with TNA Impact. It's grown, being on a platform like AMC, which is really on kind of the first page of everyone's program guide, is making a difference. I think it's continuing to build. It's been building every single week since the debut on January 15th, and we've literally gotten bigger every single week, even if just by 10%. And I tell that to the team all the time. Like we only need to get like 1%, better every single day, and by the end of the year we'll be right where we want to be. So that's going really well. But the build in between is what it's all about, and that's what kind of keeps the oxygen going. We're live on Thursday nights, but then it's like, what happens on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and what's happening with social? Where are the storylines going? We also have a little bit of an advantage and a lift with our partners at WWE and NXT, is that often our TNA wrestlers are on the CW on Tuesday nights on NXT. And they might even be on some of the WWE shows, depending on what's happening as we progress through the year. And so I think that is also giving us a nice lift as we get from, Thursday to Thursday. And then, of course, we have some big events in between those Thursday nights, which are pay-per-views. And we just came off of that with No Surrender in Nashville. And then we had TV tapings in Nashville as well to make those Thursday night shows. But it is like, we're trending in the top 10. Sometimes we're in the top 5. We've been as high as, 3 and 2 and 1 on certain nights on Twitter. So you see the buzz and the collective sort of sharing and wanting to kind of hang out and chat about the good, bads, the uglies of TNA wrestling and the matches. It's a lot of fun.
Well, we certainly had a lot of fun together, building C360, the Pylon Cam company, putting that on NFL fields. And there you go. You got the miniature pylon. If you're watching this on YouTube, be a subscriber, but you just saw the small pylon that Carlos just shared. But I mean, it was amazing, like bringing that to NFL fields and college football fields, and now all the things that they're doing with the NHL and all the other leagues, and being part of COSM now. And just saw Jeb at the Super Bowl and got to go to the COSM in LA during NBA All-Star, and just we did so many fun things together. And I know that's one of the things that you're really great at is being a real leader of a team. That must be even. I feel like it's even more. You have to do more of that now at TNA, because as much of it is you have a team, you have almost like a family that travels around the country together, and then you also have to kind of write the script of what's going to happen or what you hope will happen. I know that's a lot of questions in one, but talk a little bit about what it's been like.
Yeah, I mean, it is like a big traveling family. Maybe similar to, an NFL team or, certainly an NBA team that, you got 20, 30, 40 sort of on the talent and athlete side, but then you got, 40, 50, 60 people that are setting up the venues, they're selling tickets, they're marketing, they're running the merch stand, they're helping the talent with wardrobe. There's so many moving pieces, and I think we've assembled a great team, and I think we've done a good job of bringing some new folks in, but then we've also done a great job of taking teammates that have been in and around pro wrestling and or TNA for, 5, 10, 15, in some cases 20 years, and melded them all together. And, we have brought some good sportingness, I think, to pro wrestling. And we're also looking at some interesting production stuff, with cameras and where we're putting mics and how we're trying to, continue to do some of the stuff we've done, whether it's little thing where we talk about C360 sometimes and, where we should be putting little cameras and, inside of things, and where they should go so that fans can capture, they can capture stuff. We've got a great, social influencer who's now become a professional wrestler, BDE. He's got over 1 million followers on Twitch, and, and BDE runs down the ramp and into the ring with his cell phone live streaming on Twitch, because that's kind of his thing. And so we're trying to bring some of those little elements in so that we can keep adding and kind of bring a little bit of our signature. With TNA has been around so long, but you have to keep reinventing yourself, over and over again and change, because now the way that fans consume and see things and what's happening on social, if you're not innovating, you're not going to stay ahead. So we have a great team, Wayne, that so many people from all these different places that have done a bunch of innovative things that really helps. And I think you're going to see some stuff in the coming weeks, because we just did some stuff that is definitely interesting and innovative with the wrestlers. And so, keep tuning into the shows.
Absolutely will. I mean, at the end of last year, I thought it was really fascinating, the storyline. You mentioned earlier WWE and your partnership there, and how some of your wrestlers will wrestle there and some of them will wrestle with you. And if I remember this correctly, a WWE wrestler held the championship belt at TNA.
Yeah, Trick Williams was our champion for quite a while last year, and now Trick has moved up and is on the main card, at WWE. We finally we got Mike Santana, who's been with us for a while and is now our world champion, was able to get the belt back from both Trick, and then it went to Frankie, and then it got it back from Frankie. But yeah, right now, actually, just the other night, we had Ariana Grace, who's with NXT, just won our Knockouts World Championship away from our current TNA Knockouts champion. And so now we've got to work, and our team's got to work to win it back, which I know they're going to. So yeah, there's a lot of back and forth. It creates an interesting storyline between what happens on the CW with NXT on Tuesday nights and then what happens on AMC on Thursday nights. And as you know, in today's sort of noisy world, Wayne, if you get like another moment in the spotlight every week, I think it helps everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really fascinating, just the way that you're able to sort of move from, NXT, WWE, TNA. I mean, all the different organizations, and how you can kind of cross promote with each other, and it all boats rise.
Yeah, we've seen that, and look, we hope we can also give a little bit back to WWE and NXT now being on the AMC platform, and having more homes, more eyeballs, bigger ratings every week. It gives them an opportunity to come to AMC and have their talent get exposed to a different audience and different venues and different fans as well. And I think, like every performer and every athlete, if you get more reps, you become better. And I think we're all seeing that. And so we'll keep it going, because so far I think it's been able to provide that platform for the athletes, which is pretty cool.
When you came in as president of Anthem Sports and had to, one of the things that you were, tasked with was to, run TNA Wrestling. How did you kind of go into this organization, which has been around for a while, and really get an opportunity for you to, have the whole organization respect and want to work with you and kind of look up to you as the leader of the organization?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard because TNA had been around for a long time. There have definitely been a bunch of regime changes over the years, like there is in any professional sports, entertainment, or even just a business that's been around for 23 years. There's usually some regime changes. So there had been a few in the past. So I think probably, and probably fairly, there was probably a little bit of skepticism. Oh, this is, another new guy. What does he know? Hasn't been in wrestling his whole career. So I think we just sort of took it slow. We tried to spend time with everyone. You try to get to know everyone. And then you try to assess each of the, nuggets, the sort of gold nuggets that you have and how you have to either repurpose them or keep them. One example was we've got this great studio, TNA Studios down in Nashville with a great core team that is really, responsible for creating, what comes out of the can and goes on air every Thursday night. And I went and visited them and having run studios and run production myself, like immediately I could see that we were almost even underutilizing them in the value that they have. So we kind of injected a little bit of, fuel and confidence and a little bit of love and caring there. And they've always been great, but I think now they're blossoming even more, and they've come up with some new shows, and we've done some shows called Fade to Black and Immerse that are all behind the scenes shows that we've been putting on different platforms, and everyone's been I think everyone's been very pleased to kind of get that inside look, and it's only because they're a great group, and so we injected some energy there, and we tried to do that across it all. We brought in some new people around venues and marketing that have changed the game. I mean, it kind of hurt me, Wayne, but so many of the team and the wrestlers would tell me that they'd be wrestling in front of a couple of hundred people, and I just was like, you can't. That doesn't work. I mean, you all are great athletes. You're great performers. You can't be doing that in front of a couple of hundred people. When we're upset, we're wrestling in front of, 1,500 people or 1,200, 1,500, 1,700, and we're not happy with that. And so I think we've kind of changed the, sort of what is the baseline of good. And I think everyone's responding to that. And I mean, I know the talent tells me all the time, like, you don't understand, what it was like. I remember being in this place and there was, 150 people. And now we've got, 5,000, for our bigger shows, or 6,000, or, maybe we've got we had 2,000 the other night, or 2,200 or something like that in Nashville. And it was a small theater, but like it was great energy. And there was, that's the kind of standard that we've started to build together. The team has really responded really well, Wayne. It makes my job easy when each of the departments are hitting their marks, and we keep building it together.
Well, one of the things I think has been really interesting to watch is on social at the end of each of your events, seeing you address your whole team and give out awards. How did you come up with that idea to do that?
It was kind of just the sports thing that we come from, Wayne. We end up having these production meetings every day, and then I wanted to talk to the talent as well, and so we started something. We have production meetings, and then we have our talent meetings, and it started to become kind of like this game ball kind of situation for me, where we've all seen like the great game ball like coach in the locker room, and Wayne, you did so well, like you broke that tackle, Wayne Kimmel is getting the game ball today, and everyone enjoys it together, and so we started that. And in fact, I have one because I was lucky enough that the team gave me one when we did the AMC deal, but it's the TNA All-Star Award, and so we've been giving them out at each of the days and each of the events, and it's kind of a fun, competitive piece that like people want to strive to get it. And so we just had our highest ratings on any AMC show this fourth Thursday, and what we did is we looked at the highest rated segment of the 2-hour show, and we gave the all-star to the 4 wrestlers that were in the ring at 9:45 in the show where the highest peak happened. We did that because like performances, you have to like honor great performance. And so we're trying to do that, whether it's a wrestler in the ring, sometimes it's someone backstage, someone else on the team that's helping out. Everyone sort of cheers for them, and they get a small award, and they become a TNA All-Star. So it's been fun. I really enjoy doing it, and I think it's, we've been posting them on social as a little sort of inside look for everybody.
One of the things that I certainly I think is a lot of fun are the hats that you wear. So again, if you're on YouTube, you got to check this out. I mean, you're famous for your hats. Now you have the TNA Wrestling hat. It's certainly on.
I got my 76 hat. I got my Anthem hat here. Let's see what we got here. Hold on, Wayne. Don't go away.
I'm not going anywhere.
Don't go anywhere. Where's my 76 hat?
So your trucker hats are certainly something that are.
Yeah. So there's my Anthem hat, and I got my TNA hat. I got an Invicta hat. So we got the Invicta hat in case we're doing Invicta stuff. It's when you don't have hair, Wayne, you can put on a hat and your hair doesn't get messed up. So it's pretty good.
It's great. It's great. Well, but it's interesting. You've gotten yourself in the middle of some of these conversations on social. It's been interesting to see you interacting with the fans as the president, as the commissioner, right? I mean, like they know, they know who Carlos Silva is. If you're a TNA fan, they now know that. I mean, was that something that you meant to do, or it just kind of happened over time?
Maybe a little bit of both. I mean, when I've run organizations, I've been, a bit of a spokesperson for the organizations, whether, it goes back to like networks we ran, like Universal Sports, or, when we ran World Series of Fighting, when we ran World Series
Everyone
of Fighting.
Everyone's talking to the commissioner, they want to talk to the commissioner.
Ray and I would do like, end of fight, sort of press together, me as the president and him as the head of fighter relations. And so we kind of just, it's a real life character. I mean, everyone's like, why are you playing this character? It's like, I'm not playing a character. I am the president, and these are the things that the president does. And so, I'm trying to, bring a little of that to the organization, whether it's talking backstage, or putting a belt on a champion, because I think it's important that there's a representative from the business that is honoring the champion. And at times the referee, in some organizations, the referee just gives them the belt, but we've decided that if it's not me, there'll be someone on the team that will give the belt to them. In fact, we just had something down on the CW with NXT where the Knockouts tag team won, and I wasn't there. We just had some scheduling stuff, and so we ended up sending Daria, who's new to the organization, and Daria ended up putting the belts on the Knockouts, which was cool. So we're gonna definitely keep doing it, and it's just kind of evolved, and it's just kind of the way that we've always run organizations. So it's really nothing new. But I do get, I get flack about it. Some people think it's good. Some people think it sucks. It's all part of it all kind of comes with the territory, I guess.
Well, did you look at it as this whole thing as more of a show or more of a sport? Where do you where's the line with wrestling?
I think it depends on who you ask. I sort of talk about it as sports entertainment, because that's what I think it is. And it's funny because maybe wrestling is moving more towards sport, and sport is moving more towards entertainment. And as you know, I mean, we just came off of like the biggest entertainment weekend at NBA All-Star Weekend, which is such a great weekend that, Adam Silva and the team put together. And I mean, Wayne, I don't know that NBA All-Star Weekend's any different than a pro wrestling event in the grand scheme of things. And so I think we're going to kind of I think you see that blur that's happening. And then maybe the biggest endorsement of all is, WWE now on ESPN, the worldwide leader that is the de facto standard in sport for the last 40 years, 35 years, whatever it is now. And now WWE, you're seeing WWEers on SportsCenter as you should. And, the things that they're doing, the way that they're flying around the ring, whether they're, gymnastic, power, agility, all of those things are all part of the package. And that's true of, any sport.
So how does one become a wrestler, right? I mean, we've talked about former football players, gymnasts, right? Guys who are just really built, but like you need to have a little bit of everything to be able to perform in the ring and not get yourself killed.
That and you need to be quite a great performer in being on the mic and hitting your marks and the messaging that you're putting on the mic, because every performance in wrestling has, an entrance. They're generally on the mic. They're doing something, getting the crowd going. All of those pieces are all part of it. But I think it looked like any sport. You find your coach. You find a place that trains you. You put in your reps. You start by going to small shows. Those small shows grow into bigger shows. Those bigger shows then, get you into the majors. And, you progress from, the indies up through the indies, which are the minor leagues and are regional. And hopefully you get, to the majors, and, you get to a TNA, or you get to an AEW, or you get to a WWE, and then you got to work really hard to keep your spot. Just like an NBA team carries, 15 people. Like there's only so many slots on every roster at all of these promotions. And so there's always someone that wants to take your chair. And so then you got to make sure you show up and you hit your marks and you look great and the crowds love you, because it's all of those pieces combined that help us, keep growing TNA Wrestling.
Well, how do you evaluate that, right? I mean, like, what are are there metrics that you use, right? Are there certain, you were saying earlier, like that at a certain part of the broadcast, it was the most viewed part of it. So like those four wrestlers were the best. Like, do you look at, physique type? Is it, are they really good on the mic, and they, can they fly across the ring? And like, what are the things that you kind of look for and your team looks for, and just to decide who's going to be, as part of the different shows?
Yeah, I mean, it's really all those things, Wayne. I mean, you kind of hit on all of them, and it's data. We're much more data driven than we've ever been. So I mean, I kind of talk, in a funny way, like about Billy Ball, and how we're looking like at data, like where are the social metrics? How many posts are they selling? Merch? Are they selling T-shirts? How many tickets are being attributed to the main card wrestlers that are on that night? And then how are they, then we look at, the TV pieces, and literally we're analyzing 15-minute slots every night on TV to understand who is in the ring and what's keeping people to watch. Because, when you have a show on every night from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m., at 9:15, there's a chance you're going to lose viewers. Maybe they watched the movie before the 9 o'clock show. So, maybe they just kept AMC on. So you gotta grab them and keep them. So who are your performers? Who are your athletes that are going to keep those viewers and then drive them through till 10:15? And then, well, at 10:15, everyone starts to get a little tired and they wonder, should I, put my PJs on and brush my teeth, or should I watch a little more? And so then there's that second surge of what do you do in the show? So we're looking at all of that data, and I think that's all the data side. And then look, there's just some feeling that you have, the groundswell of support, the way the fans are talking about the wrestlers, who they want to win, who they want to lose, or and we that's just a little bit more. They're sort of doing this, and it's a little bit of just the feeling that you get, and then you ride it, and then you bring it back to data and check it again, and you just keep doing it over and over and over again, 52 weeks a year.
Incredible. Well, Carlos, it's been amazing having you on the show. As we wind down here on this edition of our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show, I've got to ask you, I mean, just from a very high level as president of Anthem Sports Entertainment, where we've talked a lot about TNA Wrestling, you have Invicta, Fighting Championships, the Fight Network, Game Plus. Like, where do you see it all going over the next 12 to 18 months? What are some of the things that we should sort of look out for, or maybe even and also some of the different events that are occurring that we can we can watch as well as attend?
Yeah, look, I mean, in the case of TNA, we're driving everything back to Slammiversary, being back at UBS Arena, the home of the Islanders, and working with John Ledecky and their great team over there. We had a great biggest event at the moment last year. We want to continue to just build that out and make that our best biggest event of 2026. And then in the case of Invicta Fighting, it's funny, today you saw Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano are going to do a Netflix special, come out of retirement and fight in MMA. If you don't know Invicta Fighting, it's been around for about 12 years. It's an all women's MMA promotion, led by a Hall of Famer in Shannon. And Shannon and I and the rest of the team are working on some great stuff to relaunch Invicta in 2026 in the beginning of the second quarter. So that's going really well, and we're excited about that. And then like on a day-to-day basis, we've got some great partners in a couple of networks that we run up in Canada, in the Fight Network, which I've been a part of for a long time, because when I ran World Series of Fighting, I used to distribute on Fight Network. And so we've got a great, exactly what it is. It's a great Fight Network. Fans are tuning in. We're driving sponsorship. And then we've got a network in Game Plus where, together we've done some work with our partners, Wayne, with VSiN, and VSiN has done stuff with us on Game Plus, and we're going to look to do some more of that around betting and wagering in the, on a television network that, is in 4 million plus homes in Canada, which is very widely distributed. I think you're going to see more from Anthem. I think we're going to look at other properties. I think we're going to continue building out our sports portfolio. We're looking at a lot of things. We're helping and working with our chairman Leonard and our CEO Leonard, who also owns the Honey Badgers in the Canadian Basketball League, and so we help him out. And there's just more of those out there. And so together, we build a great production, marketing, event, live sports engine, and it's how do we use that now to keep growing. So that's what we're gonna keep working on here. And TNA is helping to fuel that, which is nice.
Well, it's always so great to have you on the show, and I'm so happy you got to share all the amazing things that are happening with you and all across Anthem. And I'm going to be watching TNA on AMC every Thursday night. That's the plan. So thanks so much for coming on the show.
Appreciate it, Wayne. Always happy to be part of the 76 team as well with you and Chad, and we'll keep building things together.
On behalf of the entire 76 Capital team, thank you for joining us for this edition of our Sports Leadership Show. Please remember to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast network or on the 76 Capital website. You can also explore the hundreds of episodes we've produced over the past several years on those same networks. And as always, go out there and make it happen.